Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or any questions you may have. And please stay with us. Our local news is coming up in just a moment.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or even impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Leander Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, March the 10th. Your readers today are Lori and
Laura. Welcome back, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much. And back to good weather, so let's start with that. There's some sun, then turning cloudy today with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm during the afternoon with a high of 60. 60! That's awesome! Overcast tonight with a couple of showers later with a low of 50. There are periods of rain and a thunderstorm tomorrow with a high of 62, but Thursday's going to be much colder. That high is only 35. But if you want to go to national extremes and you want the extra number, McAllen, Texas, that was 90. And the low was Alamosa, Colorado, 12 degrees. The sun rose today at 7:36 a.m. and it sets tonight at 7:16 p.m. Looking at the snow derby, Buffalo, season to date, 87 inches. Anchorage, 72.6. We'll be in Alaska. And on that lake forecast, on Lake Erie, the wind is southwest at 6 to 12 knots today. The sea is less than a foot with visibility less than 2 miles at times in the afternoon with showers and those thunderstorms. The water temperature, I don't know if you know this one, 32 degrees. Totally dark.
Okay. Just want to say that my daffodils are starting to push through.
Oh, I see mine too. Yes, thank goodness.
Okay, starting on the front page. Shaped by combat after 9/11, some lawmakers grapple with Iran war. As Congress responds to President Trump's attack on Iran, lawmakers who served on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan are making their voices heard in a war debate that has taken on intensely personal meaning. Many admit mixed feelings, taking satisfaction at seeking vengeance, taking on the leadership of an Iranian regime that has targeted U.S. service members for decades, yet fearful that another generation of soldiers could soon face the same combat experiences they did. Do I take gratification? You know, there's the Marine side of me, yeah, of course, said Senator Ruben Garrido, who is from Arizona, whose company suffered some of the heaviest losses on the U.S. side during the Iraq War. But do I also understand that I have a responsibility not to let my lust for revenge drive my country into another war? Experiences in the post-9/11 wars are also coloring the decisions of the Trump administration, given that top officials, including Vice President Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, were once deployed to Iraq. Gallego, like others on Capitol Hill, leaned heavily on his first-hand experience of fighting in the wars after the September 11, 2001 attacks as he assessed the Iran conflict. Lawmakers wore bracelets etched with the names of friends killed in battle, told stories of coming under attack from Iran-backed militant groups, and reflected on their own life-changing injuries suffered during combat. While the initial votes on Iran saw Congress divide mostly along party lines, with Republicans backing Trump's actions and Democrats warning of an extended conflict, veterans in both parties share deep reservations about entering the conflict. As somebody who knows a lot of friends that didn't come home and a lot of Gold Star families, that's why the week before the attack I was actually one of the ones that was talking about caution and why we needed to avoid at all costs getting into another long, drawn-out Middle East war, said Representative Eli Crane from Arizona, a fallen Navy SEAL who left college to enlist the week after the September 11 attacks. Crane said his concerns were partially assuaged by briefings from the Trump administration that indicated to him the president is not planning a drawn-out war. He voted against a war powers resolution that would have halted attacks on Iran unless Trump got congressional approval. But Crane said wars are never straightforward. I have been on military operations that did not go to plan many times, and so I understand the nature, he said, adding that he is calling for the Trump administration to approach the conflict with humility and caution. Guerrero and other Democrats worried that it was too late for that approach. They paid tribute to the 6 U.S. military members who were killed in a drone strike in Kuwait and worried that there could soon be more American casualties. War is dirty and mistakes happen, Gallego said. The longer the conflict drags on, he added, the more chances there will be for U.S. military members to be killed. Still, many Republicans argued that it was necessary to attack Iran to stop a regime that for decades had helped train and arm militant groups throughout the Middle East. Representative Brian Mast, who's from Florida, who chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee, led the debate on the House floor against the War Powers Resolution. Mast, who served as an Army bomb disposal expert, now uses prosthetic legs after receiving catastrophic injuries from an improvised explosive device in Afghanistan. Me especially, many of my other colleagues, no one wants to see our military go into a combat or a war, he said. Then he added, but Iran's terror, which has caused the deaths of thousands of Americans, it has to stop. Important questions loom for Congress as the conflict from Iran unfolds and spreads to other parts of the Middle East. The price for the operation is already likely running into the billions of dollars, likely forcing the Trump administration to soon seek billions in funding from Congress. The OPEC alone has also scrambled global alliances and the future of U.S. foreign policy. Shadowing it all is the potential of another drawn-out conflict. Lawmakers said they owe it to their fallen comrades to ensure that doesn't happen. To me, it's to speak out. It's to say another generation should not go fight in an open-ended, ill-conceived regime change war in the Middle East, said Democrat Representative Pat Ryan of New York, his hand moving to a bracelet etched with the names of friends who were killed during his 2 Army combat tours in Iraq. Others remember how frustrated they became at Washington during their service, especially as soldiers trying to fight with insufficiently armored vehicles and not enough troops. I know what it was like to be on the very end of the receiving line of the decision made in Washington, said Representative Jason Crow, who is from Colorado, who entered the Army as a private before being promoted to a captain and deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan. Crow said that frontline soldiers often suffer because people stopped asking tough questions. People stopped being held accountable, and Congress stopped voting on it.
On the same note, rise of Khamenei's son signals Iran is digging in on war. In Dubai, United Arab Emirates, oil prices surged and stock markets slid Monday after hardline Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei was chosen to succeed his late father as Iran's supreme leader. His appointment and new strikes on regional oil infrastructure signal that Iran was digging in 10 days into the war launched by the United States and Israel. The war has choked off major supplies of oil and gas to world markets, led foreigners to flee from business hubs, and prompted millions to seek shelter as bombs hit sites including military bases, government buildings, oil and water installations, hotels, and at least one school. Khamenei, a secretive 56-year-old cleric, is just the 3rd supreme leader in the history of the Islamic Republic. He has close ties to the paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, which has been firing missiles and drones at Israel and Gulf Arab states since his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who had ruled since 1989, was killed during the war's opening salvo. The appointment suggests Tehran is not close to giving up on what it considers a fight for the Islamic theocracy's survivals. Supporters take to the streets. Thousands poured into a central square in the capital, Tehran, and other locations in a show of allegiance to the new supreme leader, waving flags and shouting phrases like "Death to America" and "Death to Israel." America and Israel, you've failed, and you will drown in the swamp that you are stuck in, said Abbas Ali Sadipur, one of the demonstrators. Iranian authorities have long encouraged public shows of support for the Islamic Republic while violently cracking down on dissent. Earlier this year, thousands of people were killed and tens of thousands detained during mass protests against the elder Khamenei. Trump dismisses concerns. The U.S. stock market careened through a manic Monday, going from a steep early loss to a solid gain, as worries turned into hope that the war with Iran may not last that long. Oil prices whipped from nearly $120 per barrel, the highest since 2022, back towards $90. Iran's attacks on the Strait of Hormuz have all but stopped tankers from using the shipping lane through which a fifth of the world's oil is carried, and Iranian drones and missiles have targeted oil and gas infrastructure and major producers. Attacks on merchant ships near the strait have killed at least 7 mariners, according to the International Maritime Organization. There is not an oil shortage, President Trump wrote on Truth Social. Prices will drop again soon, he added, suggesting shipments from Venezuela to the U.S. could help offset this price spike. Trump had a call Monday with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss the war and other issues, according to the Kremlin. Putin's Foreign Affairs advisor, Yuri Ershakov, described the hour-long conversation as frank and businesslike. He said Putin voiced a few ideas regarding a quick political and diplomatic settlement of the conflict following his conversations with Gulf leaders and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States is well on our way to achieving its objective, which he said was to eliminate Iran's ballistic missile stockpile and its ability to produce and launch them. The administration has offered shifting rationales and timelines since the start of the conflict. The White House said Trump was scheduled to hold a news conference early Monday evening on the situation in Iran. Kamal Karazi, foreign policy advisor to the Office of the Supreme Leader, told CNN on Monday that Iran is prepared for a long war. He said he sees no room for diplomacy anymore unless economic pressures prompt other countries to intervene and stop the aggression of Americans and Israelis against Iran. Amid unrelenting Iranian drones and missiles Monday, sirens blared multiple times across Israel. A man was killed in central Israel in a missile strike, the first such death in Israel in a week, and a woman was wounded. Israel said Monday that it was carrying out a wide-scale wave of strikes on the Iranian city of Isfahan, as well as Tehran and in southern Iran. The Israeli military said it hit dozens of infrastructure sites across Iran, including the drone headquarters of the Revolutionary Guard. Since the start of the war, Israel has eliminated more than 1,900 Revolutionary Guard soldiers and commanders, and an Israeli military spokesman said at a press briefing without providing any evidence. Turkey, meanwhile, said NATO defenses had intercepted a ballistic missile that entered the country's airspace for the second time since the war had started. A more hardline leader, the younger Khomeini, who has not been seen in public since the war started, was long considered a potential successor, even before the killing of his 86-year-old father. The younger Khomeini's wife, Zahra Haddad Adel, was killed in that same strike. An Iranian state TV report suggested the younger Khomeini may have been wounded in that strike, though a state TV analyst later appeared to remember a report saying he had been wounded in the 1980s Iran-Iraq war in which he served. The younger Khomeini is seen as even less compromising than his late father. As supreme leader, he has the final say on all major policies, including Tehran's disputed nuclear program. Though Iran's key nuclear sites are in tatters after the U.S. bombed them during the 12-day Israeli-Iran war in June, it still has highly enriched uranium that's a technical step away from weapons-grade levels. Khomeini could choose to do what his father never did. He could build a nuclear bomb. Israel has already described Khomeini as a potential target, while Trump has called him unacceptable and a lightweight. The regional anger is growing. Saudi Arabia lashed out at Iran following the drone attack on its massive Sabai oil field, saying Tehran will be the biggest loser if it continues to attack Arab states. In the UAE, home to Dubai, authorities said 2 people were wounded by shrapnel from the interception of Iranian missiles over the capital, Abu Dhabi. The Emirates Defense Ministry said 15 ballistic missiles and 18 drones were fired at the country on Monday. Iran also attacked Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain, where it hit a residential area, wounding 32 people, including several children, according to authorities. Another attack appeared to have started a fire at Bahrain's only oil refinery. The State Department early Monday ordered non-essential personnel and families of all staff to leave Saudi Arabia. Several other U.S. diplomatic missions have ordered all but key staff to leave. The war has killed at least 1,230 people in Iran, at least 397 in Lebanon, and 11 in Israel, according to officials. Israel reported its first soldier deaths on Sunday, saying 2 were killed in southern Lebanon, where it is fighting Hezbollah. A total of 7 U.S. service members have been killed. UNICEF, the children's agency, reported that at least 83 children have been killed and 254 wounded in Lebanon since March the 2nd.
And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News at the Radio Frontier Radio Service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. Flipping over to the editorial section, the main editorial, unauthorized cuts. Refund or not, Hochul is right. Tariffs have hurt state residents and businesses. The Supreme Court was right to reject President Trump's justification for imposing wide-ranging tariffs. Governor Kathy Hochul is also right to insist that New York State businesses and residents deserve tariff refunds. The tariffs have hit Americans and abroad and small businesses at the cash register. Instead of aiding U.S. industries, tariffs are having the opposite effect, acting as taxes on businesses and consumers. After the justices struck down tariffs imposed last year by Trump under an emergency powers law, stating that the president lacked clear congressional authorization, Trump, clearly not interested in working with Congress on this, responded to the ruling by imposing a 10% global tariff that, by law, can stay in effect for 150 days. Hochul's administration cited estimates by the Euro Budget Lab. It noted that the average New York household has faced over $1,700 in additional costs due to tariffs over the past year for a total statewide impact of $13.5 billion. Analysts following the tariffs case say it might take years to obtain those refunds if they ever come. In the meantime, some companies have absorbed the costs, while others have passed the costs along to already financially stressed consumers, and there are companies employing a combination of both. As reported by the news, Matt Glenn, a diverse range of local businesses have been affected by the tariffs, some willing to cut employees and others lowering their revenue expectations. Jim Bittner, owner of Bittner Center Orchards in Appleton, who was part of a roundtable discussion at the Amherst Chamber of Commerce, talked about chaos, confusion, and uncertainty when it comes to tariffs. Bittner is a fruit farmer. His business requires 4 years lead time to determine what types of trees to plant, whether peaches, cherries, or apples. The tariff environment makes deciding what to plant some years out of time especially challenging. And then there are potassium fertilizers that Bittner Center Orchards relies upon receiving from Canada. These have risen in price by 30% in the last year. Specialty tractors from Europe and Asia are another problem, with the cost of parts up 50% in the past year. Other businesses are feeling the pressure. Christian Johnson's company, Beautiful Brains, makes sustainable products, including biodegradable nitrile gloves. Johnson blames the volatility of the tariff policy for locking him into contracts he can't change. Aerosop, a maker of oxygen systems and an employer of 50 people, laid off 5 employees last week due to a tariff-caused drop in sales. Top Seeds, a past 43 North champion, is feeling the pressure. The innovative cracker company buys ingredients from American suppliers that import them from around the world. CEO Rebecca Brady says Top Seeds has absorbed the tariffs that have been imposed on those products, so our margins have decreased. Another result of tariffs, the company's dream to sell its crackers to airlines have been delayed. Hochul is speaking for businesses across New York when she says, "I want the money back." Regardless of how long that takes, the next election day is just months away. Employers, consumers, and others who have felt the pain of tariffs should remember which of New York's representatives in Congress supported this policy.
And an opinion from Laura Feldman. With marijuana, Supreme Court has a problem on its hands. The 17.7 million Americans who use marijuana daily or more daily can relax. The Supreme Court appears poised to hold that Congress can't prohibit them from owning firearms. More significantly, the argument revealed that the Supreme Court originalist doctrine on gun laws has made it increasingly difficult for Congress to bar almost anyone from owning a gun. The oral argument before the justices in U.S. versus Hamani focused on whether there is a historical analogy between today's cannabis users and the habitual drunkards who could be imprisoned or fined under 18th century law. The case involves a Texas man, Ali Daniel Hamani, who was charged with violating a federal law that bars users of illegal drugs from possessing firearms. In 2022, FBI agents found a gun, marijuana, and cocaine in Hamani's home, and he admitted that he used marijuana regularly. The legal background for Hamani's case was set by the Supreme Court in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, 22, and the U.S. versus Rolini, 24. In Bruin, the court, in an opinion by Justice Clarence Thomas, held that gun laws must be consistent with historical practice and tradition to be constitutional under the Second Amendment. In Rahimi, an 8-1 decision written by Chief Justice John Roberts with Thomas's dissent, the court modified the Bruin test. Roberts wrote that Congress could ban gun ownership for people deemed dangerous in ways analogous to historical determinations of public dangerousness. Although Rahimi was an improvement over Bruin, the Hamani case demonstrates how difficult it is to draw a historical analogy even under Rahimi. The federal law in question makes gun ownership unlawful for anyone who is an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance. Hamani was charged on the theory that he was a marijuana user. At oral argument, the lawyer representing the Justice Department said that the government would apply the law only to people it deemed habitual users, but when pressed on the fact that many states now permit marijuana use, and that even the federal government rarely enforces its law against users, she largely sidestepped the question. To win, the government has to convince the justices that there is a historical analogy between the current federal law as applies to marijuana users and founding federal laws that allowed the finding or imprisonment of habitual drunkards. The main problem with that analogy, as Hamani's lawyer, Aaron Murphy, pointed out, is that 18th century laws only allowed punishment of habitual drunkards. Justice Neil Gorsuch set a lighthearted tone by noting that the American Temperance Society back in the day said 8 shots of whiskey a day only made you an occasional drunkard. Then he went on a brief tour of the drinking habits of the Founding Fathers. John Adams took a tankard of hard cider with his breakfast every day. James Madison reportedly drank a pint of whiskey every day. Thomas Jefferson said he wasn't much of a user of alcohol. He only had 3 or 4 glasses of wine a night. Okay? As the author of a biography of Madison, I can tell you that the reported account of Madison is wrong. As I put it in my book, Madison would provide his guests with the best wine he could afford, but he himself never took more than a glass at meals, and he never drank hard liquor. Still, Gorsuch was correct to point out that the quantities of alcohol consumed by most people at the founding, not to mention through the 19th century and even the middle of the 20th century, were staggered by today's standards. A drunkard was someone who habitually walked around blind drunk in public, thereby creating a nuisance for others. That's extremely far from someone who occasionally uses pot. The argument grew more animated from Barr. Justice Amy Coney Barrett asked whether the government could disarm someone who took his wife's prescribed Ambien several nights a week to help him sleep. She then raised the example of a college student who took his roommate's Adderall to study for an exam. If these hypotheticals suggest that Barrett wasn't a complete stranger to the concept of illegal but maybe not a danger to the public drug use, Justice Elena Kagan's psychedelic question to Murphy was more outre. She prefaced it with this disclaimer. I'm going to say I don't know a lot about this drug. I'm assuming you don't know a lot about this drug. So what I'm going to tell you about this drug, let's just assume is the truth about this drug. Wait, that's interesting. Well, the courtroom's curiosity well piqued, she said, so the drug is ayahuasca, and it's a very, very, very intense hallucinogen, and the episode lasts a very long time. But it's not, let's say, an addictive drug. You can choose when you take it. But when you're in its grip, like you basically, reality dissolves, all right? And I'm assuming that Congress has a good reason for saying when reality dissolves, you don't want guns around. Kagan asked whether Congress could ban gun ownership by IUD users during the time when they weren't on the psychedelic. Murphy said, well, if a person took IUD once every 2 weeks and wasn't under its influence 13 days out of 14, that would not be analogous to a habitual drunkard. The transcript reflects no laughter in the courtroom regarding the hypothetical every other day user, which certainly suggests the limits of the justice's understanding of its effects. The takeaway from the oral argument is that the Romani framework is hard to apply in practice. That's one reason originalism isn't a very useful legal framework for majority opinions.
And for the Adam Zagos editorial cartoon is a picture of a huge hockey puck with the Buffalo Sabres emblazoned on it, and behind the hockey puck you have bodies of the Tampa Bay and Boston and Pittsburgh and the Knights as the Sabres roll over everybody in the NFL from last to first. So they're chasing the Tampa Bay to knock them down and hopefully get first place for good in the standings. And moving on to another voice, how to fix New York's healthcare staffing shortage. And this is from Thomas Cotrope, who is a PhD and CEO of ECMC. For many years, New York State has experienced critical healthcare workforce shortages that have placed incredible strain on our medical system. Now more than ever, it's vital for New York to remove outdated scope of practice restrictions and invest in our healthcare workers so we can grow the workforce and empower our highly skilled medical professionals to work at the top of their licenses. Governor Kathy Hochul understands the need for common sense reforms. Her proposals, outlined in FY27 executive budget, will bring New York into alignment with states across the country so we can rebuild our healthcare workforce and meet the needs of all New Yorkers. I know firsthand the challenges we face, which is why I support Hochul's proposal to expand the scope of practice for our healthcare workers. These proposals include authorizing medical assistants to administer certain vaccinations, allowing physician assistants to practice independently, and easing the burden on nurses by allowing certified nurses' aides to administer medication in skilled nursing facilities. Medical assistants are highly trained professionals capable of administering vaccines. They did so for many years through executive order during the COVID-19 pandemic. New York is the only state that does not allow medical assistants to administer vaccines. It's time we catch up to the rest of the nation and relieve the strain on registered nurse and licensed practical nursing staff. New York allows nurse practitioners with sufficient training to practice independently in certain settings. It's time to allow physician assistants to do the same. Hochul's proposal to allow physician assistants with sufficient training to practice independently will free up time physicians currently spend overseeing physician assistants. The governor's proposal to allow certified nursing assistants to administer medication in skilled nursing facilities and nursing homes, which is allowed in nearly 40 other states, will empower nurses to function at the top of their scope, preserve safety, and increase overall resident and staff satisfaction. These reforms will put us on a continued path to rebuild and grow the workforce while opening doors for the next generation of healthcare professionals.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 28 minutes after the hour, and Jim Costa of Depew is thankful for the students in his life. Students leave indelible memories. If not for the unpredictable incidents in our lives, our memories of the past would be bland and colorless. There are many holidays we've spent with family and friends celebrating Independence Day, or say Thanksgiving, with family at Grandma's house. Invariably, they're all lumped into one vague collective memory. However, no one ever forgets the day Grandpa tripped, knocked over the Christmas tree, smashing Grandma's precious ornaments, and crushing Junior's presents on the floor. What began as a disastrous event ends as humorous family lore. Another aspect of that same idea involves people whose lives have crossed ours in years past. For instance, teachers never forget those academically and otherwise gifted students, nor do they forget those whose personal problems brought grief to themselves and ministers alike. It's an unavoidable fact of human nature that the passage of time has largely blotted from our memory the names and faces of those model students who did their work, caused no trouble, and made teaching a worthwhile pleasure. One of our most memorable students was Barbara, a top student with a stage mother who pushed her daughter into every conceivable activity. Highly intelligent and hugely talented, Barbara was the lead singer in school plays. On several occasions, she was so exhausted she fell asleep at her desk. I let her sleep. One day, another teacher asked my opinion of an essay titled Why, written by Jim, a freshman student. I said he either plagiarized it or he was a genius. A check of his record showed he was indeed a genius. I offered to start him on a reading program beginning with Homer's Iliad, but that was cut short because soon thereafter, Jim was transferred to a special school. Then there was Rick, a brilliant freshman I ran into 35 years later who reminded me that I gave him the novel 1984 to read. Such precious students are never forgotten. At the other end of the spectrum are those students who come with emotional baggage. Debbie, one of my earliest students, came to my class from a troubled household. One evening I spotted her standing forlornly outside of my house. Naturally, my wife and I invited her in for cocoa and cookies. Debbie finished the year well enough, but in later years, new troubles surfaced, and a few the result of misplaced trust. A retired policewoman, she was swindled out of her house, and despite having little money, was raising several of her grandchildren. That was until 2 years ago when, at age 71, Debbie suffered a major stroke. Since then, she's been a resident in a nursing facility in Georgia. Only one of her 5 children is there to advocate for her. I still communicate with her regularly and provide what help I can. Of course, there are those unforgettable students like lovely Doris, now a retired teacher, and Steve, Jim, and Damien, grandfathers all, and each uniquely successful in his own right. Occasionally, they call me to meet for lunch, where we sit for a couple of hours, not only discussing world affairs, but also sharing with me news of their family events. Consciously remembered or not, all those beautiful young people are forever a part of me and have made my life richer for knowing them.
And for an opinion from Susan Estrich, Ice Barbie gave Trump just what he wanted. I'm the last person to defend her. For starters, I'm a dog lover, and showing a puppy you hate because you couldn't train her to hunt pheasant is no way to win my respect. The fact that she told the story on herself in her autobiography, presumably to polish her image as a tough leader, told me everything I needed to know. It should have disqualified her for almost any job. I couldn't believe President Trump was considering her for vice president, and I was horrified when he chose her to lead Homeland Security. But that was his choice. He got exactly what he asked for. She did his bidding. She may have been the face of the immigration agenda, but she was not its author. She was a toady. That it became intolerable reflects on him. It was, of course, Kristi Noem who, in the hours after federal agents shot and killed intensive care unit nurse Alex Priddy, held a news conference claiming the victim had been attempting an act of domestic terrorism and was brandishing a weapon. That wasn't just Kristi's line. Days later, after videos had clearly given the lie to Ice Barbie's claims, Trump himself called Priddy an agitator and perhaps insurrectionist. That was the administration's line, not just Noem's. The policies she could not defend on Capitol Hill this past week were his. Noem was grilled about her supposed affair with Corey Lewandowski, Trump's controversial former campaign manager, and her right-hand man. But that relationship has been the worst kept secret in Washington since long before Noem was tapped for the top job. It only became unacceptable when Trump's immigration policies did. She invited ridicule with her photo opportunities dressed for battle outside a concentration camp prison wearing a $50,000 Rolex. But that's how I saw her. Trump probably thought it was a nice watch. It didn't cost her the job. She gave the White House what they wanted. They wanted mass deportations. They didn't recoil at the violence. They welcomed the protests and the chaos that ensued in some places as an excuse for more force, as proof that we lived in some urban jungle being invaded by aliens. Did she ever say no to the White House on anything? Her firing was almost inevitable. She went to Capitol Hill, charged with defending the indefensible. It couldn't be done. How do you defend what happened in Minnesota? If that wasn't clear enough, just look at the Republicans. Democrats have been out from Rome for some time, but Republicans finally faced with the ugly side of Trump's immigration policies, not to mention the polls showing the public has lost confidence. We're also asking hard questions, which makes all the difference in the world. Democrats, she said, attacked Republican women by saying we are either stupid or we're sluts. I'm neither of those. I don't think Kristi Noem is stupid. She knew what Trump wanted. She played him perfectly to get on his short list. She delivered on his campaign promises and didn't expect to be punished for flamboyance that hardly matched his own. I don't care who she sleeps with. So the face of immigration policy has changed, but it wasn't the face that was the real problem. It's the policy. And whether that will change at all remains to be seen.
And Javier Bless says the Iran war's most precious commodity is not oil or gas. The CIA calls it the strategic commodity of the Middle East, but it's not oil or natural gas. It's drinking water. Don't underestimate it, though, because if military hostilities continue to escalate, water could become the geographical commodity that decides the war between the U.S. and Iran. The Persian Gulf is gifted with a fabulous hydrocarbon endowment worth trillions. What its deserted countries don't have is water. From the 1970s onwards, the oil money bought a solution: desalination plants. Today, the region relies on nearly 450 facilities to stop everyone going thirsty. The CIA has been briefing American policymakers for decades on the inherent risk of relying on those plants for such a crucial supply. In a secret assessment in the early 1980s, which has since been declassified, the CIA said senior government officials in some of the countries perceive water as more important than oil to their national well-being. More than 4 decades later, not much has changed. Desalination remains a relatively cost-effective technology to transform seawater. The downside is the vulnerability of the installations and the oil and gas consumption required to fire the power generators that run those plants. About 100 million people live in the countries belonging to the Gulf Cooperation Council: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman, all now under Iranian attack. Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE are, for all practical purposes, completely dependent on the desalination plants, particularly for the metropolises such as Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and especially its capital, Riyadh, also relies heavily on them. Under international law, the desalination plants are protected, but I have seen enough Middle Eastern wars to know the weight of the Geneva Conventions when missiles and bombs start flying. And they are. Iran has attacked a power station in Faraji, UAE, that keeps one of the world's largest desalination plants running. In Kuwait, debris from a drone interception caused a fire in one of the country's plants. The risk is enormous. Take the Jubail desalination plant located on the Persian Gulf coast of Saudi Arabia. It supplies Riyadh via a roughly 500-kilometer long pipeline system with more than 90% of its drinking water. All the plants are equally vulnerable, and all of them are within range of Iranian missiles. The good news is that the water is so strategic and so human that any Iranian direct attack on them would be considered a massive escalation. So perhaps is a step too far for Tehran. Still, Iran doesn't have many options to prevail. Militarily, it cannot escalate against the combined Israeli-American war machine. Its only options are hunker down in the hope that a long-lasting conflict becomes economically too painful for its enemies, or go after so-called soft targets like energy sites, airports, and water installations. From its actions, it's clear the Islamic Republic has chosen to hit soft targets and hunker down, hoping to outlast the assault. Ultimately, the Islamic Republic sees surviving as winning, even if victory comes with immense losses. Attacking several of those desalination plants would put Persian Gulf countries in an impossible situation. Outside military circles, the Middle Eastern water desalination plants receive little scrutiny. It makes sense. It's difficult to believe that someone would deliberately target something so essential to human life. But if we have learned anything over the last few years, it's that the unthinkable happens. Remember Russia shelling the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in southeastern Ukraine, the largest in Europe? Worse, perhaps, the history of the Middle East teaches us that the unthinkable has already happened when it comes to water supplies. Back in 1991, Iraqi troops under Saddam Hussein deliberately opened the taps of the key Kuwaiti oil pipeline, spilling the crude oil into the Persian Gulf. The aim was to hamper amphibious landing by the U.S. and its allies, and to pollute the sea in the hope of damaging nearby Saudi desalination plants. The risk is real, whether by targeting desalination plants deliberately or by accident due to a stray missile or a drone. Oil is essential, but water is irreplaceable.
Amen to that. And the VA medical centers in Western New York are getting a new leader. Since August 2024, top leadership at the VA Western New York healthcare system has been in flux, with the organization cycling through various interim executive directors in the aftermath of a federal investigation into treatment delays for veterans. But now, the local VA has finally announced a permanent, not interim, appointment to lead a health system that serves roughly 2,000 patients a day and employs about 22,250 people. Danielle Bergman is the new executive director of the VA Western New York Healthcare System, the Department of Veteran Affairs announced late last month. Bergman's VA career started in 2007 at the Canandaigua VA Medical Center as a human resources technical career field intern. After time as a supervisory human resource specialist with VA Healthcare Upstate New York, Integrated Service Network in Albany, she joined the VA Western New York Healthcare System, where her roles included Assistant Medical Center Director. Before her new appointment, Bergman was the interim executive director of the VA Finger Lakes Healthcare System for more than 6 months. We are excited to have Danielle Bergman on board as the new executive director of VA Western New York. Bruce Tucker, a network director of the VA New York and New Jersey Healthcare Network, said in a statement, "Over Danielle's time with VA, she has demonstrated the department's commitment to the delivery of safe, high-quality health care, and she will continue to be a valuable asset to the network, the employees and volunteers, and most importantly, for the veterans we are honoring to serve." In August of 2024, Michael Schwartz, then executive director of the VA Western New York Healthcare System, and then Chief of Staff Dr. Philippe Jaudet, were reassigned out of clinical and veteran-faced positions pending the result of an investigation into mismanaged community care referrals at the Buffalo VA Medical Center on Bailey Avenue. A Department of Veterans Affairs Inspector General report released in September of 2024 examined 42 cases in which patient care was delayed at the Buffalo VA Medical Center. Investigators found that in 9 of those cases, the delays in referring patients to doctors outside the Buffalo VA Medical Center affected the patient's clinical status or condition. One case involved a patient with advanced esophageal cancer who died while waiting more than 2 months to receive radiation therapy, which would have improved the terminally ill veteran's quality of life. The Inspector General's report focused on the VA's community care referrals, which occur when a VA medical center purchases care in the community for eligible veterans. Such referrals occur when a VA facility cannot provide an appointment within a specific time period, when services are not available within a VA facility, or when the drive time to a VA facility is more than 30 minutes for primary care or 60 minutes for specialty care. In the future, the local VA system also is hoping to make investments to its aging infrastructure. Bergman was among the officials who talked to the Buffalo News for a story in early 2024 when the local VA detailed more than $64 million worth of projects in active construction on the 1.1 million square foot Buffalo VA Medical Center campus. While there has been talk of a new $1 billion VA hospital at or near the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, officials in the 2024 interview said those plans are a long way off. In her new role, Bergman is responsible for the delivery of healthcare services at 2 medical centers in Buffalo and Batavia, and at 9 community-based outpatient clinics in Buffalo, Dunkirk, Jamestown, Lockport, Niagara Falls, Olean, Springville, and West Seneca. Bergman, who received bachelor's and master's degrees from St. John Fisher College, is a 2016 graduate of the VA Healthcare Leadership Development Program, a 2019 graduate of the Federal Executive Institute, and a 2024 graduate of the Partnership in Public Service Excellence in Government Fellowship.
And sewage from a broken pipe soils 18 Mile Creek. About 150 gallons per minute of untreated sewage was still leaking into 18 Mile Creek in Olcott from a broken pipe on Monday afternoon, but repairs were promised to be on the way, according to Newfane Town Supervisor John Syracuse. We're working as hard as we can and as fast as we can to get this thing fixed, Syracuse said. The pipe broke on March 3rd at around 10 a.m. after a parking lot at 5848 East Main Street in the town. As of 1 p.m. Monday, the amount of sewage that could have leaked from the pipe was estimated to be around 1,332,000 gallons. Syracuse surmised the pipe to be about 50 or 60 years old. He told the Buffalo News everything in the town's sewage system was working fine, and the town was still assessing how the break actually happened. At first, the sewage was filtering through the ground and flowing into 18 Mile Creek. The creek, which flows into Lake Ontario, is already an impaired water body and designated as an area of concern by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The location of the broken sewer pipe is about 1,000 feet from the mouth of the creek where it feeds into Lake Ontario. The creek is also a popular fishing destination, with the New York State Department of Conservation stocking it with hundreds of thousands of salmon and trout every year. The town of Newfane was advised by the DEC to stop the flow of sewage into 18 Mile Creek, Syracuse said. So on Monday, the town brought out several septic... Uh-oh. I lost it. There we go. No, keep going. Sorry. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. There we go. Good.
Okay.
Trucks to pump out the sewage from underground before it reached the creek. The DEC hasn't yet told the town whether any environmental cleanup will be required to account for the roughly 1.1 million gallons of untreated sewer that leaked into the creek before the septic trucks arrived, Syracuse said. He noted that the harbor near the mouth of the creek contained some 118 million gallons of water, so the amount of sewage that leaked into it was relatively small. We have high water conditions right now, too, and it can be turned over in about 9 hours, Syracuse said, referring to how quickly the water in the harbor, the area around the Newfane Marina, is refreshed from the water flowing through. The town was waiting for a special part to be shipped in so the sewage could be diverted to another pipe, Syracuse said. Once diverted, the broken pipe could then be repaired. The special part was expected to be delivered Monday evening, Syracuse said. We may be working through the night. I hope they are.
Yeah, really? Okay, and so lots of good news with the fashion outlet teeters on edge of steep cliff. It's a familiar predicament for shopping malls these days, but that doesn't mean it is any less ominous for Fashion Outlet or Niagara Falls, USA. Its California-based owner is facing a $76.8 million balloon payment on the mall due in October. But with the mall assessed at about $82 million less than it was in 2010 when the loan was first created, it's a big challenge for its owner to line up the new financing it needs. Back then, the mall was booming and retail conditions were much more favorable. The mall was fuller with tenants, busier with shoppers, and the outlet model was more popular among consumers than it is today. Now Fashion Outlets has lost much of the edge it enjoyed for years over traditional enclosed shopping malls. There is more competition from online retailers, fewer brick-and-mortar shoppers, and outlet malls aren't the lure they once were with consumers. And lately, the cross-border Canadian traffic that once buoyed the Fashion Outlet has dropped off dramatically. In October, the mall won a one-year reprieve on its upcoming loan, but current conditions are not the best in which to seek financing. The mall is on a watch list of vulnerable loans. Justin Young is one of the reasons why. On a recent afternoon, he made his first trip to Fashion Outlet in years, but he didn't have shopping in mind. He was looking to kill time and wanted to get his baby daughter out of the house on a rainy day, so a stroll around the mall fit the bill. I guess I've been mostly an online guy, Young said. Post-COVID, it was kind of weird for a while, but I get everything that I could get delivered to my house. In 2012, Fashion Outlets of Niagara Falls, USA was at a peak. The Canadian dollar was riding high, above par. That meant Canadian shoppers have much more purchasing power than they do today. Now the Canadian dollar is worth about 27% less than the US dollar. Canada has not yet built its own outlet collections just over the bridge at Niagara-on-the-Lake, nor other outlet concepts such as Toronto Premium Outlets and an expansion at Vaughan Mills in Vaughan, Ontario. And fashion outlet brands offers such as Michael Kors and Coach were still exclusive partnerships that drew shoppers from miles away. Canadian shoppers crossed the border daily for American-sourced discounts, taking advantage of the better selections, prices, lower taxes, and the attractive exchange rate. But there are fewer bargains. Outlet shopping was changing in ways that weren't popular with consumers. For years, shoppers flocked to outlet malls like the Fashion Outlet in search of bargains and name brands from the overstocks and cast-offs that didn't sell in conventional stores. Then brand names began making less expensive lines of clothing specifically made for outlets. That kept the shelves stocked at outlet malls, but bargain-hunting shoppers found it harder to uncover truly exceptional deals. The optimism they felt in July 2012 as it kicked off a $71 million building expansion that brought 35 new tenants and 175,000 additional square feet to the mall soon began to wane. At the time, critics said Fashion Outlet was overbuilding its retail footprint in response to a temporary bump in business generated by strong Canadian dollar, business that could disappear at any time, and that's exactly what happened. Lori?
And it's time for Royal Stars. Happy birthday if you were born on March the 10th. You know, you are sensitive, thoughtful, and innovative. You believe in serving the common good. This is a year of exciting change, bringing you increased personal freedom, so seek out new opportunities. Aries, this is a slower paced day. You might choose to work alone or behind the scenes. With Venus in your sign, you're particularly charming and gracious with others. Tonight, why don't you do something different? If you're a Taurus, take things at a slower pace today. Enjoy schmoozing with others, especially old friends who are popping back into your world. Tonight, check your finances. Geminis, you have to be accommodating with others and be prepared to go more than halfway because today the moon is opposite your sign. This happens for 2.5 days every month, and it's not a big deal. Tonight, just listen. Cooperate. Cancer, you make a great impression on bosses and VIPs today. In fact, this is a wonderful day to schmooze. That becomes the word of the day. Make time in your day to socialize with others at lunch or for coffee, to see friends for happy hour. This is a pleasant and friendly day. Tonight, organize. Leos, this is one of the most romantic days of the month. It's also a great day to appreciate sports and playful activities with kids. Tonight, schmooze and socialize. Virgos, home and family might be your focus today, along with spouses, partners, and friends. Later in the day, you will enjoy entertaining at home. So tonight, just enjoy your friends and your family. Libras, today you feel a strong need to talk to someone. Of course, you are one of the most social signs of the zodiac. Tonight, you will have warm discussions. Scorpios, this is a fun-loving time for you. However, today your thoughts are on finances, earnings, and cash flow. That doesn't sound like fun-loving. Because fellow coworkers are helpful, you might see new ways of earning money. Tonight, fun-loving. Romance is everywhere. Sagittarius, with the moon in your sign today, you might feel more emotional than usual. However, you will enjoy good fortune because you have the advantage over all the other signs. Tonight, enjoy the good times. Capricorn, 2 different influences are at play today for your sign. One of them will make you want to retire and be by yourself to enjoy your own privacy. Privacy appeals. Aquarius, this is a romantic day and a romantic evening. Enjoy your surroundings and likewise enjoy smoozing with neighbors, siblings, and relatives. Tonight, friendly romance. Finally, Pisces, people notice you today. In fact, some people will know personal details about your private life. Be aware of this in case you have to do some damage control. But tonight, let it go dancing.
Okay, so as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that's 716-821-5555. Betty Baker, PhD, Anthropology. Paul W. Dzinski. Linda L. Kraus. Nee Lang. Dr. Sharon A. Kulhanek. Nee Fisher. Carolyn L. Nazarat. Nee Kirshner. Kevin F. Tash. Carol Marie Thompson. Nee Videtti. Priscilla A. Howell. Nee Stocken. And Donata, known as Ginny M. Batista. Again, if you need further information on any of these names, please give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Lori?
And Hochul supports helping the city and keeps mum on raising the taxes. Governor Kathy Hochul said Monday that the state is trying to be as helpful as possible to the city of Buffalo, but she stopped short of backing Mayor Sean Ryan's plans for a city property tax hike and to borrow money through the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. The Buffalo-born governor, who maintains a home in the city, called the mayor's proposals very preliminary. She mentioned that the recently amended state budget included an additional $40 million for Buffalo, bringing its total state aid in the budget to nearly $206.3 million. Hochul said she and Ryan have had conversations about the city's long-standing low collection of property taxes. She said Ryan wants to right-size the city's property tax structure. As a resident, that's up to the mayor in that case, Hochul told reporters after meeting with the Capital Region businesses representatives and lawmakers at 9 Point Cider Works, an Albany cider business. And I'll pay whatever taxes show up in my next bill, but we're trying to be as helpful as we can to the city of Buffalo to lessen the burden on the residents. The Assembly and State Senate, which held hearings on Hochul's $263 billion budget, are expected to unveil their own plans for the budget in separate resolutions this week. Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, Democratic from Bronx, and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart, Cousins, will then negotiate a final state budget due April 1st. Ryan asked lawmakers to pass legislation about sponsored by Senator April Baskin that would allow the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority to sell bonds to borrow money on the city's behalf. The control board, created during the city's fiscal crisis in 2003, was initially allowed to borrow up to $170 million with the issuance of bonds with a maturity date of 2037. Under Baskin's bill, the board could borrow up to $500 million in additional aid with a maturity date of 2070. Last year, at the request of then-Mayor Christopher Scanlon, the state budget included a financial aid package for Buffalo featuring the sale of parking ramps to a newly created Buffalo Parking Authority, as well as a 3% hotel occupancy rate. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, March the 10th. On your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Lori and
Lita.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers, again, are Lori and
Lita.
And the news in brief. A Buffalo man was shot by Amherst police after stabbing cop is guilty of assault. A Buffalo man who was shot and wounded by Amherst police after he stabbed an officer in July of 25 was convicted Friday by an Erie County court jury. He was convicted of assault and attempted assault, the Erie County District Attorney's Office reported. Raquel M. Grant, age 27, was acquitted of first-degree attempted murder by jurors who deliberated for 3 hours following a 2-day trial. He remains held without bail and faces up to 15 years in prison when he is sentenced for the felony convictions, and that will be on May 20th. The incident happened on July 12th on North Bailey Avenue near Emerson Drive. Amherst police were responding to a domestic violence complaint when authorities say they saw Grant climb out a residence's rear window while holding 2 large knives. Grant ran toward Officer Aiden Vanglove, stabbed him, and knocked him to the ground, police said. Vanglove and Lieutenant Matthew Lobluglio fired 5 shots, hitting Grant in the chest and arm. Vanglove was treated for 2 stab wounds to his arm. The Office of District Attorney Michael J. Keene reviewed the shootings and found the officers' actions were justified. A fire causes $400,000 in damage to 3 apartments, and this is in Amherst. An apartment fire in Amherst on Sunday caused an estimated $400,000 in damage. The blaze was reported at about 8:45 a.m. at 679 Skinnersville Road, which is off of Sweet Home Road and just north of Sweet Home High School. Police and Amherst Central Fire Alarm officers said in their news release. A woman reported waking up to the smell of smoke in her apartment and went downstairs to find her residence filling with smoke. Thick black smoke also was reported coming from an attached garage. No injuries were reported as all residents evacuated their homes. The cause of the fire was under investigation and initially did not appear to be suspicious in nature, police said. The fire alarm office listed the cause of the fire as an improper use of a heat gun tool. The Red Cross was called to assist 8 adults and 1 child who lived in the apartments that were damaged by the fire. Of the 3 units damaged in the blaze, 2 sustained minor smoke damage. In November 2023, a 3-story building under construction in the 600 block of Skinnersville sustained about $1 million in damage in a fire, officials said at that time.
And maybe you've heard that the Ticketmaster is now going to be paying great fines. The Justice Department, Live Nation agreed to a settlement. Justice Department lawyers announced Monday that they've reached a settlement in their antitrust lawsuit against Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation Entertainment, in a case that alleged an illegal monopoly over live events in America. But it remained possible that some states might continue a trial on their own. The announcement by the Justice Department at the start of the trial in federal court in Manhattan was greeted angrily by Judge Arun Subramanian, who said no one informed him of the tentative deal until late Sunday, even though a term sheet for a possible settlement was signed on Thursday. It's entirely unacceptable, he said. Adam Gitlin, a lawyer for the District of Columbia, said the states were requesting a mistrial, although the state of Texas has expressed serious concerns about the deal between the U.S. and Live Nation, and states have not yet agreed to the deal. David Marriott, a lawyer for Live Nation, said the company opposed mistrials and believed it should proceed. The Department of Justice and Live Nation didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. It comes as the 2 sides faced trial in New York over whether to dismantle the monopoly the Justice Department said was squelching competition and driving up prices for fans. Indeed. The case brought under President Joe Biden's Democratic administration in 2024 accused Live Nation of using threats, retaliation, and other tactics to suffocate the competition by controlling virtually every aspect of the industry, from concert promoting to ticketing. The Justice Department accused Live Nation of engaging in a slew of practices that have allowed it to maintain a stranglehold over the live music scene. The Justice Department has said the company used long-term contracts to keep venues from choosing rival ticketers blocking venues from using multiple ticket sellers, and threatening venues that they could lose money and fans if they don't choose Ticketmaster. Live Nation has maintained that artists and teams set prices and decide how tickets are sold. Ticketmaster and Live Nation Entertainment, based in Beverly Hills, California, have a long history of clashes with major artists and their fans, including Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen. Ticketmaster, which was established in 1976 and merged with Live Nation in 2010, is the world's largest ticket seller across live music, sports, theater, and more.
A Jamestown man pleads guilty to kidnapping and drug charges. A Jamestown man averted a trial on sex trafficking charges by pleading guilty Monday to kidnapping and fentanyl possession that could put him in prison for a decade or even two. Dwayne Lowry, age 31, kidnapped the girlfriend of one of his drug runners, gave her drugs, and abused her as he forced her to stay with him over 22 days of drug runs from Olean to Buffalo, including a stay at a hotel, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Donna M. Duncan. He told her she wasn't leaving, Duncan said during Monday's plea hearing in the U.S. District Court in Buffalo. The kidnapping happened in mid-October of 2023 and lasted until November 3rd, when she fled a Buffalo apartment and went to Buffalo Police Headquarters to report that she had been held against her will. I brought her from Olean to Buffalo, and she wasn't allowed to leave, Lowry said in court. I was selling drugs, selling fentanyl, he told U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo. I was wrong, honestly. I was just looking for fast money. Lowry is among the nearly 7 dozen defendants from the Jamestown area who appeared in Buffalo's federal courthouse since last year on drug charges or whose cases were connected to drugs in some manner. His plea came a week before his trial was to begin. A federal grand jury last year indicted Lowry with sex trafficking by force and coercion, kidnapping, narcotics conspiracy, possession with intent to distribute fentanyl, and using and maintaining a drag-involved premises. According to the indictment, Lowry kidnapped 2 individuals and coerced 2 individuals to engage in commercial sex acts. He pleaded guilty to possessing fentanyl with the intent to distribute and 1 count of kidnapping. When fashioning a sentence, Villardo can consider the other kidnapping case and other facts Lowry admitted to as irrelevant conduct, even though they may not have been specifically included in the 2 counts that he pleaded guilty to. Lowry used a West Cowden Place residence in Jamestown for his drug trafficking. The government will seek an increase to Lowry's sentence based on its view that he sexually exploited a victim, and if Villardo agrees, the federal sentencing guidelines would suggest a prison sentence of about 19.5 to 24.5 years in prison. Defense attorney Justin Ginter said he will seek a sentence that does not include that upward departure from sentencing guidelines. If Ginter's argument prevails, the guidelines would recommend roughly 11 to 14 years in prison. The fentanyl conviction carries a 5-year mandatory minimum prison sentence. Law enforcement officers, after 2 controlled drug purchases from Lowry, searched his residence on December 2nd of 2022 and found 59 grams of fentanyl. The case was investigated by Homeland Security Investigations, the Jamestown Police Department, the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office, and the Olean Police Department.
And AI is killing entry-level positions, a report finds. Artificial intelligence is rewriting the rules of getting a first job. A new report from the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas finds AI is doing 2 things at once in the labor market. It is squeezing opportunities for young and entry-level workers in fields most exposed to AI, while boosting pay for more experienced employees whose know-how is harder for software to imitate. The data suggests it is getting tougher to land that first job in industries that rely heavily on AI tools, even as those who build experience and the right mix of skills can eventually benefit from higher pay and more resilient careers. That tension is what Laura Ward, President and CEO of Workforce Solutions, Greater Dallas, University of North Texas, President Harrison Keller, and Ben McGill, UNT's Chief Economic Development Officer and Executive Director of the Texas Talent Accelerator, are all seeing from different vantage points in North Texas. Ward said national researchers have long documented a basic digital skills divide. Many people are comfortable on smartphones, but not with the tools modern jobs rely on, such as email and office software. AI adds a layer of complexity to a digital skill divide that's been here for a long time, she said. The Dallas Fed report helps explain why that layer matters for young workers. It draws a line between codified knowledge, which is the textbook material and procedural instructions AI can already master, and tacit knowledge, the judgment and intuition that comes from experience. For new hires, most of the expert part of the job is codified. They lean on what they learned in class or training. For seasoned workers, those same tasks are often the simplest part of the day. Their real value lies in tacit knowledge, the experience-based work of solving problems, coordinating with others, and recognizing patterns. McGill said conversations with employers fit that picture. Some are already testing whether AI can do work that used to fall to junior staff. One employer told him that AI is absolutely replacing jobs and that the company sent a company-wide communication telling managers, before you hire anybody, see if AI can do it. That creates a quandary for young workers, McGill said. It leaves workers wondering how they can ever get to the experience they need for a higher level job if they cannot start in the kind of entry-level roles where people used to start before working their way up. If software can take over routine documentation or data entry, it can free up people with tacit knowledge to focus on higher value work. It also means fewer traditional entry-level positions where young workers learn how to apply classroom skills, pick up a company's culture, and start climbing the ladder. The numbers in the Dallas Fed report bear out employers' concerns. Since the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022, overall U.S. employment has grown, but jobs in the most AI-exposed sectors have slipped. Employment in computer system design and related services have declined even as total employment has risen. Across the 10% of industries most exposed to AI, employment is down roughly 1% while the broader economy adds jobs. That decline has landed mostly on workers under 25, in part because employers are hiring fewer young people into AI-intensive roles. At the same time, wages in AI-exposed industries have grown at least as fast as the rest of the economy, and in some cases, far faster. Since late 2022, average weekly wages nationwide have risen about 7.5%, while pay in computer system design has increased about 16.7%. Looking across more than 200 occupations, the report finds that in jobs where experience barely affects wages, AI exposure is associated with weaker wage growth. In jobs where experience commands a large premium, AI exposure is associated with a stronger wage growth.
Let's talk about the Sabres. That's good news for Buffalo.
Woo-hoo!
There's plenty of winning numbers tied to victory on the historic night in Buffalo. You'll remember the fights, the magic of a 3-goal comeback in the final 8 minutes and 57 seconds of play, and the roar of the crowd in KeyBank Center all night. If you left the building or turned off your TV saying to yourself that you haven't seen too many hockey games like that, there's a good reason. You haven't. The Sabres' 8-7 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning on Sunday night snapped a tie for the first place in the Atlantic Division and put Buffalo atop a division this late in the year for the first time since it closed the 2009-2010 season atop the Northeast Division. It also created a bevy of statistical and historical notes that benefit its status as an instant classic in Sabres history. Here are lots of nuggets about one of the craziest hockey nights in Buffalo you've ever seen. The win was the Sabres' 7th straight, and it makes the 2025-2026 season just the 4th in franchise history in which Buffalo has posted multiple streaks of 7 or more wins in the same campaign. The Sabres, of course, had a 10-game streak from December the 9th to January 3rd. They also pulled off the feat in 2025-2026, 7 games, 8 games, and 1983-84, 7-10, and 1975-76, 7-8. The Sabres have won 7 straight, are 3-2-1 in their last 16 games, and are 28-5-2 in their last 35. According to TSN, it was just third NHL games of the 2020s when both teams scored 7+ goals, and only the sixth such game of the 21st century. The others in this decade were Minnesota's 10-7 win over Vancouver on February 4th of 24, and Toronto's 10-7 win over Detroit February 26 of 22. According to ESPN's John Buccigross, it was just the ninth game in NHL history, including playoffs, with 100-plus penalty minutes and 15-plus goals. And it's been a while. Last time in the playoffs was April 25th of 1989, when the Penguins beat Philadelphia 10-7 with 130 PIMs. And last time in the regular season was January 31st of 86, when Vancouver beat Minnesota 10-5 with 168 PIMs. It was the sixth NHL game this season when both teams rallied from multi-goal deficits to at least tie the score. That's the most since 2008 and 9. The Lightning were down 3-0 and 4-1 before rallying to take a pair of two-goal leads. The Sabres were down 6-4 and 7-5 before scoring the final 3 goals to win the game. According to TSN, the Sabres' 28 wins in their last 35 games are the third most in a 35-game stretch by an NHL team since 1996 and number 7 on the all-time list. The rundown: 31 for Boston, 1929 to 1930. 30 for Detroit, 1995 to 96. 29 for Boston, 1970 to 71. 29 for the New York Islanders, 1981 to 82. 29 for Boston again, 2008 to 2009. 29 for Colorado, 2021 to 22. And 28 to 16 teams, including Buffalo, 25 and 26. The 15 combined goals were the most in a game at KeyBank Center since it opened in 1996. The previous record was 14, set in a 10-4 loss to Dallas on March 9th of 23. The game was the Sabres' first win, allowing at least 7 goals since a 10-7 victory over Detroit. That happened in Memorial Auditorium on February 4th, 1993. Alexander McGillney, 4-1-5, and Pat LaFontaine, 2-3-5. According to New York Islanders statistician Eric Hornick, the Sabres had lost 33 straight in regulation when allowing 7-plus goals. Also, according to Hornick, Tampa Bay had an all-time record of 61-1 with an active 60-game winning streak when scoring 7-plus goals. Its lone previous loss was a 9-7 defeat to Calgary during its 1992-93 inaugural season. The Lightning outscored the Sabres 4-3 in the second period, and Buffalo outscored Tampa Bay 4-3 in the third. According to the NHL, it was the first game with teams combining for 7-plus goals in 2 different periods since Detroit's 11-6 win over St. Louis, and that was November of 92. 7 players had 3-plus points in the game, the first NHL contest to have that many since Toronto's 8-6 win over Calgary on March 14th of 2009. For the Sabres, the list included Tage Thompson, 0-4-4, Jason Zucker, 2-1-3, Rasmus Dahlin, 1-2-3, and Bowen Byram, 0-3-3. Tampa Bay's group was Nikita Kucherov, 1-2-3, J.J. Moser, 1-2-3, and Darren Radish, 0-3-3. The Sabres scored 8-plus in a home game for the third time this year, an 8-4 win over Ottawa on October 15th, and a 9-3 win over Chicago, November 21st. The Sabres had not had more than one fighting major in a game this season. They had 5 on Sunday. Dahlin, Sam Carrick, Peyton Krebs, Michael Kesselring, and Beck Malston. According to veteran Sabres NHL stat crew member Mike Hain, it's the first time they have had 5 since a 4-3 overtime win on Atlanta on March 17th of 2004. The pugilists that night were Andrew Peters, Eric Bolton, Adam Mayer, Brad Brown, and Jeff Gilson. The crowd of 19,070 was the Sabres' 14th sellout of the season and their 9th in a row. Go Sabres!
Impressive. Okay, and so moving over to the Buffalo Bills, Trubisky and more Bills have departing. The Buffalo Bills will be in need of a new number 2 quarterback behind Josh Allen, as well as replacements for 2 players who have had key roles in leading the team to the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL last season. Mitch Trubisky, who handled the backup quarterback role the past 2 seasons, is in agreement on a 2-year contract with the Tennessee Titans, according to a report Monday from NFL Network. That deal won't be official until the start of the new NFL league year, which comes at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. Left guard David Edwards will leave for a lucrative deal with the New Orleans Saints, and fullback Reggie Gilliam, a special teams mainstay who helped James Cook III win the NFL rushing title, earns a multi-year deal with the AFC East rivals New England Patriots. Curses! Edwards' new deal with the Saints will be for 4 years, worth $61 million, according to a report from ESPN's Adam Schefter. Edwards' departure seems likely after the Bills agreed to terms Saturday with center Connor McGovern, who is set to sign a 4-year, $52 million deal, making Edwards harder to fit under the Bills' salary cap. Gilliam, who spent 6 seasons in Buffalo, wanted to be back. He played a career-high 235 offensive snaps in 2025. His value wasn't a secret, though, and he became so valuable that the only team he had known could no longer afford to keep him. Gilliam received a 3-year, $12 million contract from the Patriots. NFL Network's Mike Garofalo reported that $6 million of Gilliam's contract is fully guaranteed. He finally got the multi-year deal he coveted in Buffalo. Trubisky, 31, was a second overall draft pick of the Chicago Bears in 2017, and that marriage did not work out, but he found a home in Buffalo as Allen's backup, spending 3 of the past 5 seasons in that role. After 1 year with the Bills in 2021, Trubisky signed a 2-year contract with the Steelers and then returned to Buffalo when that deal expired and has been Allen's backup for the past 2 seasons. Over that time, he did not take almost any meaningful snaps. Allen is one of the toughest, most durable quarterbacks in the NFL, but Trubisky did light up the Jets in Week 18 last season, going 22 of 29 for 259 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 35-8 victory. It is possible that showing increased its value on the open market. In Tennessee, he'll reunite with former Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, who coached Trubisky in Buffalo in 2021 and serves in the same role for the Titans. It's likely that Trubisky will be the backup to Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft, who is coming off an up-and-down rookie season for the Titans. Terms of Trubisky's deal with the Titans have not yet been reported, but space under the salary cap is a problem for the Bills, who still must get under the cap by Wednesday. It's not a problem for the Titans, who have nearly $90 million in available cap space heading into the start of free agency, second most in the NFL, according to Sports Financial website. The Bills re-signed Shane Buechele, who has been their practice squad quarterback the past few seasons, earlier this offseason. With Trubisky's departure, Allen and Buechele are the only quarterbacks under contract at the moment, so the Bills will likely add another through free agency or the draft. As of Monday afternoon, only 2 quarterbacks had agreed to deals in free agency, Trubisky and former Packer quarterback Malik Willis, who will sign a 3-year deal with the Dolphins on Wednesday and is expected to take over as Miami's starter. Notable backup options still left in free agency include the Commanders' Marcus Mariota, the Giants' Russell Wilson, the Jets' Tyrod Taylor, the Raiders' Kenny Pickett, the Rams' Jimmy Garoppolo, the Bears' Case Keenum, and the Chargers' Trey Lance, among others. Keenum previously served as Allen's backup during the 2022 season. Trubisky and Edwards will be missed in the locker room. The presumed starter at left guard for the Bills now is Alec Anderson, who re-signed with the team on a 1-year, $3 million deal in February. If so, Anderson will have followed Edwards' trajectory, having first served as the team's 6th offensive lineman in jumbo packages before making the jump to the first string. Edwards started at left guard for the last 2 seasons for the Bills after starting his career with the Rams in 2019. Parts of the pull to Buffalo in 2023 was to reunite with position coach Aaron Kromer, who retired at the end of the season. Edwards' average annual value of close to $15 million priced him out of Orchard Park. With McGovern's deal, the Bills are still set to return four of five offensive line starters and Anderson, who joined the team in 2022. Gilliam, too, had played a pivotal role on offense and special teams since he joined the Bills in an undrafted free agent from the University of Toledo. He appeared in 94 games across 6 seasons and totaled a career-high 13 tackles last season. Gilliam's tenacity as a blocker led Joe Brady to call more plays with 21 and 22 personnel in 2025. Gilliam played 21% of Buffalo's offensive plays during the regular season, and he proved he is among the top fullbacks in football and worthy of the payday he eventually received from New England. The Bills could not afford Gilliam, though. They still need to clear cap space, and the team has too many needs on defense. In 2025, Gilliam was on the field for 174 of the Bills' rushing plays, according to Pro Football Focus, and his run-blocking grade ranked first among all fullbacks. His work as a blocker helped Cook lead the NFL with over 1,600 rushing yards. The Bills' tight end group, which includes Gilliam, proved to be among the most effective in the NFL last season, especially as a run-blocking unit. Buffalo must replace him through free agency or the draft, in which the Bills own 7 picks. There's also turnover on special teams, where the Bills lost their last coordinator, Chris Tabor, to the Dolphins. General manager and president of football operations, Brandon Beane, previously retained special teams ace Sam Franklin Jr., a safety who had played just 10 snaps on defense over the past 2 seasons.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 26 minutes after the hour. Team Penske drivers make their boss proud. Avondale, Arizona. Joseph Newgarden threw down the gauntlet shortly after winning the IndyCar opener of the Desert Doubleheader at Phoenix Raceway that paired Roger Penske's open-wheeled series with NASCAR for a first-ever twin billing at an oval track. His victory in IndyCar's first race at Phoenix since 2018 set up Team Penske for a sweep on the same weekend the organization kicked off a season-long celebration of its 60th year in motorsports. Roger Penske had his 6 drivers spanning 2 series at the same track, where they mingled and cheered each other on, eager to make their boss proud. It will be so disappointing if the Cup guys do not deliver, Newgarden said after Saturday's win. We got to go first. It worked out. Now you got to put the pressure on. He didn't let up later that night at a dinner with Team Penske partners, where Newgarden continued to talk trash to NASCAR teammates Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, and Joey Logano. Then Newgarden wore a Blaney shirt and sat on his pit stand Sunday cheering as Blaney won the Cup Series race to complete a Phoenix sweep. In addition to the 2 race victories, David Mulikas won the IndyCar pole and Logano won the pole for the NASCAR race. Newgarden, Mulikas, and Scott McLaughlin all joined Blaney in victory lane to celebrate. Joseph put the pressure on us, he said. This weekend is going to be absolutely ruined if you guys don't do it on Sunday, Blaney said. It's always special to win for Roger. You don't want to mess that up. We had 3 out of 4 boxes checked. We had IndyCar pole, Cup pole, IndyCar win. You got to finish that out, right? There's a little more internal pressure because you don't want to be the guy that don't finish out the whole week, and for RP. These are the moments that inspire the Penske employees who strive to make the boss proud. Penske, who turned 89 last month, has been fielding championship contending teams for more than 5 decades, setting an industry standard for excellence. Penske was an aspiring racer, but gave it up in 1965 to focus on his business ventures. He didn't leave motorsports, though, and the next year launched a sports car program that was the foundation for his racing empire. He now fields cars in NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA sports cars, and the World Endurance Championship Series. Penske has won a record 20 Indianapolis 500s, 3 Daytona 500s, and in January won the Rolex 24 at Daytona for the 3rd consecutive year. Team Penske has more than 650 major race wins and 48 championships across multiple series. The last decade has seen 20 championships, which include 14 consecutive seasons earning at least 1 series title. He owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series, a role that makes him the promoter of the Indianapolis 500 and in charge of IndyCar's schedule. He owns the Detroit Grand Prix and last year added to his portfolio the Long Beach Grand Prix, the most prestigious street race that is occurring in the United States. Penske this year has partnered with Jerry Jones for this weekend's inaugural IndyCar race in Arlington, Texas, and the series in August is scheduled to race through Washington, D.C. in the Freedom 250, an event that is supported by President Donald Trump. He needed early season races to close the traditional long gap between IndyCar's season opener and its second event, which sometimes didn't happen for 3 or more weeks. This year, he loaded the schedule with a record 4 consecutive races in March to open the season and to build momentum for IndyCar. So he worked out a pairing with NASCAR to share Phoenix Oval over the weekend, marking the first time the once bitter rivals have shared an oval track. NASCAR and IndyCar did partner on the road course at Indianapolis after Penske bought the track in 2020, but that doubleheader failed to generate the enthusiasm that was seen in Phoenix. It culminated with a new feat in Team Penske history, the first time his IndyCar and NASCAR teams won on the same track on the same weekend. As most people know, Roger Penske does this to win races. That's what he loves to do, said NASCAR team president Michael Nelson. To give him something he hasn't achieved before, to give him race wins with 2 different series, means the world to all of us.
Okay, and moving over to some college basketball, the Duke men reached number 1 in poll for the 150th time. Duke was chosen number 1 in an AP Top 25 men's college basketball poll for a record 150 times on Monday. The Blue Devils received 56 of 60 first-place votes from a national media panel after wins over rival NC State and North Carolina, leaving them in the top spot for the 3rd consecutive week. Arizona stayed second and received 4 first-place votes, while Michigan received the other number 1 ballot after its impressive win over number 8, Michigan State. We've put ourselves in a position to do something special and make a run, Duke coach John Shire said. The Blue Devils reached number 1 in the AP poll for the first time on December 13th in 1965, and they spent more time there than any other men's basketball program. UCLA is second with 134 weeks on top, while Kentucky is third at 125. Now Shire's crew heads into the ACC tournament as the number 1 seed, but potentially without 2 of their starters. Patrick Ngamba II and Caleb Foster both were wearing boots in the second half of Duke's win over the Tar Heels on Saturday. I'd be shocked if both of them are playing in the conference tournament, Shire said. Our plan is how can we get as healthy as possible and ready as possible for 2 weeks from now, whenever we go into the NCAA tournament. Defending national champion Florida climbed to 4th in this week's AP poll, the highest the Gators have been since they were preseason number 3. Houston moved up to 5th after finishing 2nd to Arizona in the regular season Big 12. UConn dropped from 4th to 6th after the Huskies were upset by Marquette in their regular season Big East finale. And Nebraska's Holberg gets an extension. Nebraska and men's basketball coach Fred Hoiberg has agreed to a 3-year contract extension after he guided the Cornhuskers to a school record 15 wins in Big Ten conference play. The school announced the deal Monday, days before the league's tournament begins, with the 11th ranked Nebraska as the number 2 seed. Hoiberg is now under contract through the 2031-32 season, and he previously signed a 2-year extension in 2024. The Huskers, who have won 20-plus games in 3 consecutive seasons for the first time in school history, entered the Big Ten tournament with a 26-5 record. The team reached a program best number 5 national ranking in January. And over in the women's, UConn women lose votes but still are number 1. Number 2, UCLA picked up first-place votes from top-ranked UConn in the Associated Press Women's Basketball Top 25 on Monday, and Texas jumped South Carolina to move up to number 3 after winning their head-to-head showdown in the Southeast Conference Tournament Championship game. The Bruins picked up 3 first-place votes after their 51-point win over the number 9 Iowa in a Big Ten title game Sunday. UConn has been a unanimous number one from the national media panel for the past 8 weeks. The undefeated Huskies received the other 28 first-place votes. UConn and UCLA are expected to be the top 2 teams when the women's NCAA tournament bracket is revealed Sunday night. While the Bruins are done until then, the Huskies face Villanova for the Big East tournament title on Monday. LSU moved up to number 5, swapping spots with Vanderbilt, and despite its loss to UCLA, Iowa moved up to 7th. Duke jumped 5 places to 8th after winning the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship, beating then number 12 Louisville in overtime.
And around and about news and notes. The Russian wins the gold at the Paralympics. Russia's national anthem rang out at the Paralympics for the first time in more than a decade after para-alpine skier Varvara Voronchina won gold. Russian athletes are back competing under their own flag in the Winter Paralympics at Milan Cortina after years of having to do so as neutral athletes because of the country's doping violations and their military conflicts. Voronchina finished first in the women's Super G standing competition on Monday, and the medal ceremony took place shortly afterward. It is the first time Russia's anthem has been played at a major global sporting event since the invasion of the Ukraine in 2022, and it's the first time it has been heard at the Paralympics since the 2014 games that were in Sochi. Iraq coach wants qualifier postponed. Iraq coach Graham Arnold has urged soccer's international governing body to postpone his team's Intercontinental World Cup qualifier later this month because of disruptions caused by the war in the Middle East. Arnold says many players and staff cannot leave the country because Iraq has closed its airspace until April the 1st. That has already forced Iraq to postpone a training camp in Houston. Iraq is due to play a winner-takes-all playoff on March 31st in Monterrey against either Suriname or Bolivia. Arnold is asking FIFA to delay that match so his squad has adequate time to prepare. A fixer in scheme pleads guilty. One of the so-called fixers in a sprawling betting scheme to cash in on big bets on rigged NCAA basketball games has pleaded guilty. The federal prosecutor's office in Philadelphia says Jalen Smith appeared Monday in federal court and pleaded guilty to wire fraud and bribery charges. Prosecutors say the Charlotte, North Carolina man trained local basketball players and used those connections to recruit players in the scheme. Charges against Smith were unsealed in January, along with 25 others. Besides the fixers who recruited players and placed bets, the charges targeted 17 former college basketball players and 4 other players who were active with their college teams this season. More than a dozen players tried to fix games as recently as last season, and some helped recruit other players, federal prosecutors said. Smith was active in helping fix games in 2023 and 24 and the 2024-25 seasons, placing bets and recruiting players with the promise of big payment in exchange for purposely underperforming during a game, prosecutors said. It's all about money.
Isn't it?
Rematches highlight Champions League. The Champions League round of 16 starts Tuesday with blockbuster rematches, teams ending long absences from this stage, and the feeling good story of newcomer Bodo Glimt. Paris Saint-Germain hosts Chelsea, which last July stopped the Champions League winner, adding the Club World Cup title. Real Madrid hosts Manchester City for the second time this season and the 5th straight year in the knockout rounds. In other repeat games this week from the league phase, Galatasaray hosts Liverpool and Barcelona goes to Newcastle. Bodo Glimt hosts Sporting Lisbon on its artificial turf field inside the Arctic Circle. Kang wins Gender Equality Award. Women's soccer club owner Michelle Kang won a Gender Equality Award from the International Olympic Committee on Monday. Kang, who owns French powerhouse OL Lyons, Washington Spirit in the United States, and London City Lionesses in England, was named the European regional winner of the IOC's Gender Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion Champions Award. The Olympic body's citation said, "The American businesswoman has championed a vision of sustainable, independent women's sports built on the principle that equal means equal results." The global winner of the IOC's annual awards was Abit Bhattacharya, the former captain of India's men's volleyball team, who created a 400-team community league in rural Assam.
Okay, and let's see what questions we have for Eric today. Dear Eric, over the past 2 years, I have buried both of my parents. My place in the world going forward feels uncertain and untethered, but in reflecting on their lives and long marriage, I now see that everything we are, we have, and we do, to me, really only matters through the lens of story. From my earliest memory, I wanted to write. My middle school, I lost my way, I lost confidence. I've spent a 20-plus year career reading others' writings, both for my own leisure and that of my students. While I regularly encourage my students to write and I champion and believe in their emerging voices and attempts, I can't do the same for myself. At home, when I have free time, something stops me. I procrastinate, or I let my kids and my family's obligations take up my entire day. I know I'm a good writer. I know I can tell a good story, spin a good yarn, because I do it daily in my classes and lectures. I have good stories. How do I get started, Eric? How do I know what to tell and whose stories to tell? Just the good ones or the difficult ones too? Can you help me get some clarity and encouragement to pick a direction and begin? I haven't told anyone else about this deep longing, but I sense that you're trustworthy. Signed, Seeking. Dear Seeking, I appreciate you putting your trust in me. It can be very difficult to put yourself out there creatively, and it can be equally as difficult to maintain the momentum it takes to finish a project. So don't be too hard on yourself. Consider taking a class or a workshop, something that will ask you to show up in person or online and will give you deadlines. You might look specifically for a generative workshop, one where the instructor comes with prompts or assignments to get you thinking, so you're not just starting at a blank page. The group expectations that come with a class can be helpful, but I think what's even more helpful is the expectation that you place on yourself by showing up every week, even if you haven't finished your piece or if you're tired or busy. That's really valuable information for your brain. It says this is important to me, even when I'm not totally in love with the process. Also, I can't say enough about the value of journaling. Even if one doesn't ever want to publish or even have their writing read by someone else, a journal can be a wonderful tool for processing, for putting down thoughts that one doesn't judge, and for remembering. If you don't already have a journaling practice, please start. Even just a couple of lines a day. There was a period where I didn't feel much like journaling, so I committed to just writing down what happened in a day, no commentary. Wouldn't you know it? Before long, I had to add my 2 cents and my thoughts to these very dry lists. And from there, stories were born. I wish you luck. Dear Eric, I've been married for more than 34 years. I keep telling my wife that I got the better part of the deal, but she insists that I'm wrong. How do I resolve this conflict? Signed, Lucky Man. Dear Lucky, I get a wide variety of letters reflecting a wide variety of situations, but I don't think I've ever received a letter in which the problem was, I'm too happy, help. So thank you for that, and I hope this doesn't come across as facetious. I really did appreciate this. I think you and your wife should agree to disagree. You're both lucky, and not for nothing, you're both putting in the work it takes to make a 3-decade relationship joy-filled and life-giving. I sincerely hope that your biggest conflict is always the question of who feels luckiest.
Hear, hear.
Dear Eric, I enjoy your column every day. The letter from Jumbled was about the puzzles in the paper. The wife does the crossword and the husband does the jumble. But the wife started doing his jumble. My husband of 65 years and I both like jumble. I write my answers on a piece of paper and he writes the answers in the newspaper. Problem solved. Signed, Happy Jumbled. Dear Happy Jumbled, a beautiful and easy solution. It's also one that a number of couples employ according to the other responses I received. Others suggested that in addition to this couple having a chat about what's really going on, they make a copy of the jumble or print out 2 copies of the online version if they have a printer at home. This way, everyone is happy. Lori?
Let's talk a little bit about golf. Ricky Castillo made back-to-back birdies right after 18-year-old Blades Brown came undone with one bad hole, closing with a 5-under 67 to win the Puerto Rico Open for his first PGA Tour title. Brown, trying to become the youngest PGA Tour winner in 95 years, had a one-shot lead with 6 holes to play when he went from a bunker to the water and made triple bogey. Castillo, playing in the final group behind Brown, holed a 12-foot birdie putt on the 13th and then hit a beautiful pitch over the mounds to 5 feet for birdie on the par 4 14th. Castillo narrowly missed out by 11 points in the FedEx Cup standings on getting into the $2 million signature event at the Bay Hill this week. He headed to Rio Grande, Puerto Rico, played bogey-freed in the final round at Grand Reserve, and then earned his way into his first major championship as a pro. The victory gets him into the PGA Championship. He already was eligible for the Players' Championship next week at the TPCs in Sawgrass. It's really cool to put into words to be able to win my first event, Castillo said. I felt like I wanted to be in Bay Hill, and I decided to just come out here and play this, and ended up winning. So it all works out in the end. Yeah, surreal week. He finished at 17 under 271, one shot ahead of Chandler Blanchett, who birdied the final hole for 67. Brown, who turned pro last year and didn't graduate high school until January, birdied his last hole for a 69 to finish alone in third, his first top 10 on the PGA Tour. But it was one hole, the 455-yard 13th, that did him in. It was similar to the American Express in January when Brown played in the final group with Scott Scheffler. He put a tee shot into the water on the 5th hole and made double bogey and was quickly out of reach of golf's best player. This time, he drove into a fairway bunker, and his approach to a green with water all the way down the right side drifted well to the right. He took his drop, then got too aggressive with a wedge, and the ball trickled over the green. He chipped to 7 feet and missed the putt, taking triple bogey. Brown had a one-shot lead going into the 13th, and then was 4 shots behind when he finished the 14th. John Daly II, the 22-year-old son of 2-time major champion John Daly, started 3 shots behind and shot 34 on the front 9. But he fell back quickly within 5 bogeys in 7 holes and started the back 9 and shot 74. I learned that you've got to put 4 rounds together, and it's not easy out here, Daly said. But very happy, not mad at all. Just a great day and a great week. He heads back to Arkansas with eyes on trying to win a NCAA title. Brown earned his spot in the Valspar Championship at Innisbrook with his first top 10. He already had a sponsor exemption into the event. Johnson successful in the Champions debut. 2-time major champion Zach Johnson turned 50 on February 24th and quickly cashed in Sunday in his PGA Tour Championship debut, closing with a 3-under 69 for a 4-shot victory in the James Hardy Pro Football Hall of Fame Invitational. Johnson made an early bogey, and that was his only blemish on the scorecard, adding 4 birdies to pull away on the old course at Broken Sound. He became the 22nd player to win his debut on the 50 and older circuit. Stuart Sink, age 70, and George McNeil, age 72, finished second. Staying in modest shape to play with these guys because it's still really good golf, highly competitive on a phenomenal track, I am humbled, Johnson said. I am extremely excited, and I have been excited. The first moment I stepped foot on these premises, I was like, hey, this is special. Johnson finished at 11 under 205 and earned $330,000 to move to number 3 in the Charles Schwab Cup. Sink remains atop this standing. Johnson had not won since he captured the British Open at St. Andrews back in 2015. He was a U.S. Ryder Cup captain at Marco Simone, in 2023, losing to Europe.
And here's a little bit of news on the stadium project by the Buffalo Bills, and they are projected that they will meet the workforce goals for the new stadium. After early worries about whether the Buffalo Bills would reach goals involving underserved and disadvantaged businesses in the construction of their new stadium, the team is now projected to get there by the end of the project. With many parts of the work to demolish the current stadium next spring now under contract, the Bills are projecting minority-owned, women-owned, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses will exceed the goals for their hiring at the stadium. Minority-owned and women-owned businesses were already projected to meet the team's goal of 15% involvement on the project, but now service-disabled companies are also trending in the same direction to get over the 6%. The Bills are projecting women-owned firms at 17.8%, minority-owned firms at 17.5%, and service-disabled veteran firms at 6%, according to Penny Samea, Bills Vice President for New Stadium Relations. Each category saw a slight boost since numbers were released in the fourth quarter of 2025. It was the service-disabled numbers that were still 0.1% away from the goal. I know this has been asked in previous meetings, where are we with SDVOB? And right now, we are projected to hit on that goal as well, Samea said Monday at a meeting of the Community Benefits Oversight Committee. We're very comfortable with where we are in terms of our investments, he said. The projections are pretty strong. The Bills' hiring goals tied to the Community Benefits Agreement are based on $1.5 billion, which was the price of the stadium at the time the agreement was signed in 2023. Since then, the stadium cost has gone up to around $2.2 billion, with all cost overruns paid by the Bills. Before the latest update, project participation numbers for minority businesses were at 16.9% committed through the fourth bid package, while women-owned businesses were at 16.5%, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses were at 5.9% earlier last year. The service-disabled veterans businesses utilization number was at 3.9%. The Bills and their general contractor, Gilbane Turner, expected to be able to close the final gap in workforce goals to include underserved businesses in the new stadium project when they hired contractors for the demolition of their current building. They put the demolition of the current stadium out for bid last year, the final piece of the project. It includes decommissioning of the current stadium, demolition and abatement and disconnecting and removing existing utilities so the site can be filled to grade and likely turned into a parking lot. Arc Building Partners is the project lead. More than 100 jobs were offered at a recent job fair hosted by the Bills to help begin bringing in part-time game day workers at the new stadium. The team is filling positions in guest services, and that job fair was just the start of rounds of hires by the team that will come in a variety of areas of needs on game day. The job fair was held at the team's field house for potential ticket takers and greeters, ushers, elevator operators, ADA services, and premium hospitality. The Bills are also accepting application on the team's website. Legends Global, which has been tasked with post-construction hiring goals for food service, maintenance, and operations at the new stadium, also continues to bring on workers. The company held 2 internal career fairs to potentially bring workers in from the current stadium and provided them with information about seasonal opportunities at the new stadium. More than 300 of those workers have now engaged with Legends. More job opportunity fairs are on the way for Legends, Samea said. Legends, the stadium concierge, taking over for longtime food and beverage provider Delaware North, is also making high-level hires for the new concessions program and considering how to reach goals for the hiring of disadvantaged companies. The company has now reached out to all Erie County certified MWBE companies in the food product industry to discuss opportunities at the new stadium. Legends has been able to engage in discussions with around 75% of those businesses to this point. Of the retailers, vendors, and service companies used in new stadium maintenance and operation, 30% are expected to be minority women-owned business entities. Legends is also expected to make service-disabled veterans owner businesses 6% of the pool of vendors and service company hired.
Are we closing or a little bit more?
A little bit more.
A little bit more.
Let's go
Today in history.
There you go.
On this date in 1496, Christopher Columbus concluded his second visit to the Western Hemisphere as he left Hispaniola for Spain. In 1864, President Abraham Lincoln promoted Major General Ulysses S. Grant to Lieutenant General and the command of the Union Army in the Civil War. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell's assistant, Thomas Watson, heard Bell say over his experimental telephone, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." From the next room of Bell's Boston laboratory, those were the first words ever conveyed by telephone. In 1959, thousands of Tibetans rebelled against occupying Chinese forces surrounding the Dalai Lama's palace to protect him from potential harm. Fierce fighting between Tibetans and Chinese forces ensued, causing the Dalai Lama to flee Tibet for India, where he remains in exile today. You have been listening to reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Tuesday, March the 10th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., and we rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, please call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Lori and
Lita.
Thank you for listening. Have a great day.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.